The world is here to challenge you. Oh, you didn't know that? You thought it was here to make you happy? It's not working, is it? There's one of my favorite parables in the Gospels that Jesus tells is the parable of a man who is building a house, and he builds a house without digging a foundation. He builds a house on the sand, and then the house is finished, and then suddenly the floods come, and the storms come, and the house is swept away in the floods and the storms. And then there's another man who builds a house. First he digs deep. This is what the parable says. He digs deep until he reaches the rock. And when he reaches the rock, he has a deep foundation for the house. Then he builds the house. Then the floods come, and the storms come, and the rains come, and the house is not swept away. It stands because it has a deep foundation. Obviously, in this parable, the house is you. And Jesus adds, if you practice, this is my paraphrasing, which is probably more correct than what you read. If you practice my teaching, which is the spiritual teaching, then you will be like this man. If you live this teaching, which is the awake, then you are like this man who builds a house, and he digs this until it reaches a foundation and then builds the house. So that means the foundation obviously is within yourself to find the dimension of being. And then life comes at you and throws all kinds of challenges in many, many forms. That's what life does, what the world does to you. The world is here to challenge you. Oh, you didn't know that? You thought it was here to make you happy? It's not working, is it? Can't work. The world isn't here to make you happy. It is actually here to challenge. It's part of the evolution. It's here to challenge you. So the challenges come. Here comes one. And then that goes away. And then you're okay for a little while. And suddenly from behind, oh my God. And if you're not rooted in the dimension of being, which Jesus calls the kingdom of heaven, which in my paraphrase or translation is the dimension of spaciousness. Kingdom is dimension of heaven, vast spaciousness, which is inner space. If you're not rooted, then life is sorrow. Life is suffering, as the Buddha said. Whatever situation you go into, whatever you do, sooner or later, and usually sooner, I'm paraphrasing the Buddha again, the Buddha this time, you will find suffering. Wherever you go, you'll find suffering, unless you awaken. I teach suffering, he said, and the end of suffering. So the beauty of Jesus' parable about digging deep until he reaches the foundation is just a beautiful picture, a beauty of what is needed in the inner dimension. So when you are connected with, rooted in the presence, the being that is, one could say, underneath the person, then the challenges that life throws at you do no longer create unhappiness or despair. You're not the world loses its ability to make you unhappy and the conditions of the world. You transcend, so to speak. You transcend. Now, it doesn't mean you cut yourself, you're not cut off from everything. That's not it. It means that on the level of the person, there's still you are still affected a little bit, of course, by the varying conditions. You experience something not good, you lose something valuable, and you say, "Oh, that's a pity." Or somebody close to you dies, and you feel tears coming. So you experience that sadness that is there when a loved one dies, or you experience the sadness if you look at the suffering of the world. You may suddenly find yourself becoming sad, or your parent dies, or a child dies. It's even more difficult to cope with a child that you have dies. That's not supposed to happen, and you weep. But underneath that, deep down, there is a peace. There is sadness on the surface, and underneath there remains a realm of peace. So and important when somebody dies, sometimes people are so devastated. It goes on not for several months, it goes on for years. They relive a bad situation again and again and again through the mind, thinking about it and so on. But to be affected emotionally by certain situations will still happen, most likely, but you're not totally devastated. You remain in touch with a dimension of depth, and in that dimension, if that dimension could speak, it would say, all is well, there is no death. Death is a phenomenon that happens in this dimension here. This is a dreamlike dimension, and this is where all these things happen. But the dimension doesn't speak. It's just, if it could speak, it would probably say that. So this is the digging to reach the rock, the foundation. This is what it's all about. And so we are not at the mercy anymore. Yes, you're not. There was I believe I quoted him in a book. There was a philosopher in ancient Greece. He was a Stoic philosopher. Stoicism is a very interesting spiritual philosophy, if understood and practiced correctly. There was a philosopher in ancient Greece, and then somebody came to him and told him, "Oh, your son has died." This is a different reaction from Kim mentioned another story the other day about an Indian, I believe, a guru who was weeping because his son has died. That's fine, he was weeping, but I'm sure there was still, he was still connected to the being. But this philosopher, the Greek philosopher, when he was told, "Your son has just died," he's supposed to have said, "I knew he was not immortal." And he is supposed to have been a Stoic philosopher. Now, we don't know what his inner state actually was at the time. Was he completely cut off from his emotions? Was he just, or had he gone so deep that the entire world around him appeared to him as a dreamlike scenario, that perhaps he'd gone so deep into being that he had lost interest in this dimension completely, who knows? Or was he cut off? Had he cut himself off and mistaken that for spiritual realization? We don't know. Perhaps a better answer would have been, maybe that's what he actually said, it got misinterpreted. A better answer would have been, I know he is immortal. And that would have been probably closer to the truth. When you conceptualize, the screen of conceptualization creates a barrier between you and whatever it is that it refers to. And without the screen of conceptualization, a sense of separation begins to dissolve between what you're perceiving and you. So there comes a sense of uniting, becoming one with that which you're perceiving. When one travels, one finds that one wants information about a new place that you've never been to before. So that happens sometimes to us when we travel. Sometimes we have somebody, a guide that shows a new city or something like that, happens occasionally. And sometimes, although it's quite interesting to learn all these facts about a new place, but if the guide continuously talks and explains, and this building was created by this architect, was built in such and such, okay, you get overburdened with conceptual knowledge, and it prevents you from experiencing the place more directly in a non-conceptual way. And this is particularly important if you go to a place that is like an ancient cathedral or something, or a temple, and you go into that, and people travel with digital guides. Sometimes you put it in your ear and it tells you what everything is. It can be highly interesting, and you learn a lot about that place, all the significance of works of art that you see. Let's say it's a cathedral. It tells you who built it, what the meaning of this is and that, and who created that painting, and so on. You get continuous commentary as you walk through that place for 30 minutes. Are you really experiencing that place, or are you experiencing only through this screen of conceptualization? Are you really there? It's no doubt the information that you're getting is very interesting, and there is a place for that kind of knowledge, but it prevents you from something more immediate and much deeper, to experience that place truly, to be there in the state of presence. And in the state of presence, you don't actually know anything in the conventional sense, but you sense and interact with and experience that place in a different way. I don't know where we were traveling a couple of years ago, and there was a forest walk that had been organized by some naturalist and a very highly knowledgeable guide. A group of 10 people or so, we were taken through this rainforest, and the guide was full of information, but gradually I just couldn't stand the continuous talking anymore. I couldn't, burdened with knowledge, and I stayed behind more and more, and finally I was like 100 yards behind the group. There were 9 people walking. I couldn't hear anything anymore, and it was wonderful. Then suddenly I found I was really in the forest. Then suddenly, before I was in my mind. The mind had become a screen through which, in a very distant way, one could still experience the forest, but I wasn't really there. Now, without the conceptualization, of course, I miss out on quite a bit of knowledge, probably, but if I had kept with the group, a lot of that knowledge I probably would have forgotten anyway soon after. So I give particular importance to this way of knowing because our civilization almost completely disregards that. It is of extreme importance. One could call it a unitive way of knowing because when you conceptualize, the screen of conceptualization creates a barrier between you and whatever it is that it refers to. And without the screen of conceptualization, a sense of separation begins to dissolve between what you're perceiving and you. So there comes a sense of uniting, becoming one with that which you're perceiving. It's the end of that sense of separation which comes through excessive conceptualization. Particularly important in relating to other human beings. When you only relate through concepts, there's always that barrier. And so any kind of, you can have, obviously, we're all familiar with prejudice. Prejudice is just an example of the inability to relate to another human being because the concepts, the accumulated concepts of the mind about this person, or because of, for whatever reason, racial prejudice or social prejudice or whatever kind of prejudice you have, there's already a formulated view in your mind. The concept makes it impossible for you to relate to the other as a human being, because all you see is the concept of this. This is the nature of prejudice. All you have is a concept, and you don't see the human being. You see your concept, and so it's an unpleasant thing to do to another human being, to impose not just prejudice, but any kind of dehumanizing them through excessive conceptualization. When you do that, and you can do it to entire groups of people, you call them something, and by calling them something, you have dehumanized them, you've made them to ciphers, to concepts. For entire systems can do that when you find terrible things happening in many countries when they kill part of their population. Genocide, it's called. That was the word I was looking for. When genocide happens, what precedes genocide is you dehumanize an entire group of people by imposing certain concepts on them. For example, in communist genocides that happened within communist countries such as Russia and China during the Cultural Revolution, especially Cambodia, when during the regime of Pol Pot, 1/3 of the population were killed. What precedes that is you impose concepts such as traitors and class enemies, imperialists, whatever concept they have. So they are traitors, they are class enemies, they are exploiters. This entire group of people, immediately they're not human anymore. You have dehumanized them. And then violence can happen more easily because you're not killing a human being, you're killing this conceptualized entity. So these things are very subtle and are also part of the how the ego relates to humans. So it's very important to have a balance in one's life between the two types of the knowing and the knowledge and the knowing. Coming back to visiting a cathedral with or without a guide, ideally you would go the first time without any guide and experience it fully, and the next day, if you're still in town, you go with a guide and experience through conceptual knowledge the same cathedral. Now you learn a lot, and on the third day you go back again, and then you experience this in both dimensions. You have learned a lot about it, but you have also experienced it already. And when you go back for the third time, already having accumulated that knowledge, but also having experienced it already, you can bring the two together and find a balance. So you can have the spaces of interacting directly in this unitive way, and you can still know things. So that's really the way to go, is to have the balance between the two in all areas of your life, in personal interactions and so on. The humans love their pets, obviously, because you can relate to a dog or a cat more easily without the conceptual knowing. You can just look into the eyes of a dog and the dog looks back at you, and you are not formulating any kind of concept about the dog, and you know the dog is not imposing any concept on you. The dog has no opinion about you. It may sense an energy field, but it doesn't have an opinion. It loves you, not interested in what kind of a person you are, what your character flaws, although it can sense very negative energies, it can sense that. So animals can free you temporarily from the conceptual mind. And babies can do it too. 1-year-old baby, look into their eyes. The personality hasn't arrived yet, hasn't formed yet. Oh my God, how beautiful, they say. Oh, and you know the baby has no opinion about you. And you feel liberated for a moment. A human needs to suffer until they realize that suffering is no longer necessary, is optional. An interesting question you could ask yourself: check within. Am I able to sit here in a state of awareness? In other words, am I able to sit in this room quietly, meaning without thought? Some of you are able to be without thought for what little, perhaps just brief moments here and there. It's good enough. To simply decide to be present instead of thinking like this. If it's still too difficult, you can put some attention on the breath as it leads you into presence. You're present with the breath. Stillness is a word we could use. It's a pointer to that there's a stillness within you. Still is an interesting word in English. It could refer to cessation of movement in the sense of sit still. You can tell a child, sit still, okay? Be still, meaning don't move. Or it could refer to the absence of noise, which could be external noise. Usually it's very still, it refers to external noise. But this is the inner stillness we're talking about, which is the absence of the movement of thought. And then you have achieved what the French philosopher was talking about, sitting quietly in a room. And traditionally, that for many people, it's associated with doing a meditation. So some people, when they meditate, they're able to be still. Usually they use some kind of technique, which is the precursor to stillness. Hopefully the technique leads into that stillness, and then the technique is not needed anymore. The technique could be a mantra, it could be counting, as for beginners, counting the breath. It could be some visualization, inner visualization, or some focusing on some external object, like a flame of a candle. There's a meditation object or a meditation technique. And that's a good, perhaps, intermediate step for on your journey to stillness. But the problem that tends to arise is you get attached to the journey towards stillness, which is the technique. And the obstacle is, and I'm talking for many of you who are practicing some form of meditation, a great hindrance in what otherwise could be a wonderful tool for awakening, meditation. A hindrance is a certain idea, a certain perhaps unconscious assumption that meditation is something that you do. Some people even write it in their schedule. Every day there's a lot to do, and then one of the doing is 7 a.m. meditation, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and then again 10 o'clock p.m. In between many other things to do. Dinner with so-and-so, meditate. Okay, now I'm doing the meditation. And then the body goes into a certain position. Okay, okay. And then you practice the technique. But you are trapped in the movement of doing. And doing implies time, because every doing requires time, and every doing has a certain aim, you want to achieve something through the doing. So the aim here is, but you might not even know that. You might just think the aim is to become good at practicing the technique. But that's ultimately not the real aim. Maybe some teachers are very good at practicing their technique, but can they take you beyond that? Well, only you can do that, ultimately. So you're doing something, whereas the essence of meditation is not any kind of doing, it's the realization of being, which can only be here and now. And you cannot do to realize being, you have to let go of doing. So it requires no time. The aim of meditation ultimately is to eventually realize that by doing your meditation you can't get there. Why can't you get there? Because you're already there, you just don't know it. The being is already the underlying essence. However, there's a paradox, and it can be expressed in the following way. It appears that many people need time in order to realize, or before they realize, that they don't need time. They need time to realize that they don't need time. So even the Buddha practiced many techniques for several years because he thought he needed time to awaken. And then at some point he let go of all techniques and sat under a tree, gave up the techniques. His disciples left him. He said he lost it. And there he sat alone under a tree. All time came to an end. He wasn't going anywhere anymore. So then the realization of being happened. The question that then may arise is, couldn't he have done that from the very beginning? Or did he need to go through that and become so frustrated, searching through time, and that the frustration eventually, and the suffering that he created for himself through very extreme aesthetic practices of depriving himself of food and exposing himself to very unpleasant cold and heat and enduring it all, which all, yes, did he need to do that, or was that a mistake that he could have avoided if somebody had told him that you don't need time? This remains unanswered. In the same way, one could say that a human needs to suffer until they realize that suffering is no longer necessary, is optional. I'm talking about psychological suffering. could you please elaborate on the phenomenon of time? When I'm fully present, I'm out of time, so to speak. Everything is perfectly okay as it is. It almost feels careless, as in the reality of this world, not everything, as in the reality of this world, not everything is okay. There's my old mother, my teenage daughters, and climate change that call for my doing and thinking, planning. But then, when I sink deep in the presence of the now, this all seems not to matter anymore, and I might as well do nothing about these worldly matters. This greatly confuses me. Please help me to get this straight. Thank you. So that's a very interesting question. So at times when he goes deeply into being, there's that sense that the world is fine. Everything is perfect. There's nothing that needs doing. And then when you come out of that and you see there's a lot that's wrong with this world. And both are true. There are certain levels of truth. They seem to be quite often contradictory. If you, in the state of intense presence, one truth applies, and that is, you are already, in the essence of your being, you are already complete, and there's nothing to achieve, there's nothing to add to who or what you are, there's nothing you could possibly add. There's already a sense of oneness and completion. And then when you think of the world appears like a dreamlike substance, and the world is fine too from that perspective. The world is going through an awakening process. That was one way in which you could interpret it, and it is going exactly where it needs to go. And the end is already assured, because the end is the complete awakening. As the Buddhist said, eventually every blade of grass will also become awakened. It's a transubstantiation of the entire world into spirit. One could say, let's not go too far. The omega point said, whatever, okay, we don't want to go too far. Let's keep it in the practical realm. And when you lose connectedness with being, then the world is just dreadful. There's so much that's wrong. And it's going to get worse, it seems, on this level. Both are true on their own level. The thing is, without the realization that this person does have, if you just say, "Oh, it's all a dream. It doesn't matter," that's not quite right. It's not true as far as you are concerned, because you're only repeating something that you've read somewhere. And that excuse, then you don't need to participate in this world, you think. No, it's all, I'm not going to do anything anymore, because it's all a dream anyway. I refuse to participate in this dream world. Now, what happens if you do that? The dream world will knock you on the head. But it's only a dream. It's a dream, I'm dreaming. Oh no, it hurts. So to speak, it's metaphorically speaking. The dream, if you dismiss it as just a dream world and you don't need to do anything, it's all pointless. The dream world will show you that you're wrong. And it will be painful. And so the secret then lies in being in both worlds, so that yes, this, if you want to even call it the dream or the dreamlike world here, you cannot just deny it. If you have the deepest realization, there have been people, humans, who have completely gone within into the deepest, into being, and lost all interest in this world. And some have remained there. If they lived in the West, you can find some of them in mental homes. If they lived in the East, such as in India, they will be sitting somewhere by a temple or somewhere, and people will come and bring them food, because they traditionally recognize that state of complete disappearance from this world and complete alignment with Source. So they will bring you food. So hopefully, if that ever happens to you, hopefully you won't find yourself in the West. Hopefully it happens in India, if you're lucky. But very few humans, that is not generally the destiny of human beings and of humanity. Perhaps those few individuals, they also have their purpose of representing and affecting the totality through their deep connectedness. But some have become teeth, like Ramana Maharshi. To him it happened. He was only 16, and he went to the temple and sat there and didn't even speak anymore. He relinquished all doing. And people had to put food in his mouth. But he was just enough doing left for chewing his food. And then for several years he sat there and he was being fed. He was so lucky to have lived in India. And then gradually he re-emerged back into this dimension again, and then he gradually he started speaking again. They asked him questions about the scriptures, and he could interpret the scriptures without necessarily having read them beforehand. So he gave deep answers. They came out of the state of being. And so he found he came out again, and then he found a balance between being immersed in the being and being able to active in this world and to transform the consciousness of this world to contribute to the awakening. And so for most of us, the balance needs to be achieved between being rooted in the being dimension and without losing the ability to participate in this world, to take action when it's needed in whatever way, so that you can have one foot in one dimension, the other foot in this dimension. So you're the bridge. And then you see that this world, there's quite a lot of things that you could do to make this world, to use almost a cliche, to make this world a better place, which means more conscious place. Whatever activity you choose in this dimension, the most important thing is that whatever activity or action you perform, that it is done consciously, not in the service of the egoic entity. It is done consciously, no matter what it is. Even if you, let's say you're a server in a restaurant, are you performing your job consciously, which means give attention to every movement. How do you put the plate on the table? Is it just, or is it, and the fork and the knife? And then how do you relate to the so-called customer? what can I help you? What would you like? Is there a presence that flows into your interaction with the customer? Yes, what can I do for you? Good, then you go and get it. And many activities can be transformed by doing them consciously. And then are certain other activities, perhaps, in this world that are, by their essential nature, so unconscious that you may have to remove yourself from that kind of activity. Only you can know whether the activity you're involved in can be carried out with presence, or whether the activity itself denies presence. Some companies in this world, the general environment in some companies is so stressful and negative and dreadful that you might need to remove yourself. Or if you stay present in a company that's deeply non-present, it is also very likely that they will let you go. If you're lucky, they'll let you go. Or you have to say, one day you'll find yourself saying goodbye, and you walk out into uncertainty. But uncertainty is a wonderful thing if you accept it. If you accept uncertainty, not as something dreadful, but you don't know what's going to happen. Okay, it's fine. So, whatever activity you perform, make sure that I called it presence, but there's another word we can use, it's wisdom. Without wisdom, good intentions are not enough.